Welcome to the Resilience Unlimited Show, your go-to podcast for empowerment and growth. I'm Coach Dr. Lauren, founder of Resilience Unlimited, inviting you to join our transformative journey each week. This space is specially crafted for high-achieving women, specifically women of color, where we can feel seen, heard, and part of a thriving community. This podcast is your compass for emotional regulation, understanding your purpose, and living unapologetically authentic. Ready to invest in yourself? Welcome back, ladies, to the show. I am thrilled because I have a guest, as you all can see. I've been doing the solo. Well, those of you who are watching, if you're listening, you'll hear the guest very soon. But I've been doing the solo thing for a minute. But Kim Spight is one of my longtime clients. I've been working with her for a year. I am thrilled to have her on the show. Kim, welcome to the Resilience Unlimited show. Can you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kim Spight. I live in Dallas, and like Lauren said, we've been working together now for about a year. And both personally and professionally, whether it's volunteering or professional, I love working with Lauren, and I'm excited to tell you about my journey with her.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. So those of you who know the show, you know I like to get right to the meat of the matter. So we are going to hop right into the questions. So, Kim, we've been working together for a year. I am very excited to hear what led you to coaching and what led you to my services.
We were both in this Facebook group together, and I remember you sent me a inbox because you were thinking of starting your coaching business. And the Facebook group was for Black women that have ADHD. And I wasn't really active in the group, and I just happened, I think I had posted something. Anyway, you found me and you reached out, and we just had a conversation. And you were asking me, had I thought about coaching? And at the time, where I was working at the time, I did have a coach, and I know that coaching really is good for me.
Yeah.
And after we talked, I clicked. We clicked with each other. And I was very open and honest, which you got to know that's how I am. And I knew that working with you would give me what I needed, both personally and professionally. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you, I think it was the master classes that you did.
Yes.
Yeah, that was early on, right?
Yes.
And I'll never forget. It was in the master classes, and you talked about the four pillars framework,
Yeah.
and you were like, okay, which one do you fit into? And I was looking at it, and I was like, well, really, all of them. And it was like the inner critic and the approach it with confidence, and
Yes.
it was two more.
Empowerment. Well, empowerment was
Yes,
war at the end, but finding your authentic
mhm,
self,
yes,
prioritizing your
yes.
priorities.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and so all of that resonated with me. And initially, I did the master classes, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a break. I don't need a coach. And then something just clicked, and I was like, okay, it's my intuition. We'll talk about it a little bit. I was like, okay, I'm gonna reach back out to Dr. Lauren, and I'm glad I did.
Yes. You know, you really bring it back. I need to bring back some of those master classes because I
Mhm,
feel like so much has happened in my business in a year that there was so much value in those
mhm,
master
mhm,
classes and they were free. And
mhm,
I truly loved doing them because it brought good conversation. And it was always an intimate group of women and we could just
mhm,
be honest. And so, yeah, I love that. And you know, it's so funny, Kim, I don't do Facebook anymore either. Like I'm not in that, I'm still in the group. I probably
mhm,
should re-engage again because as you and I know, as two Black women with ADHD, like we need that community. So
mhm.
I'm just happy. I'm happy I found you and I'm excited that you're here and we're talking about this. This is
I have to
amazing.
tell you, one of the things with your master class, you made sure we all put our cameras on.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, this is like voluntary. Why do I have to turn my camera on? And I was like, okay. And I think it was one Friday I had gone, I think I went to Starbucks to pick up a drink, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it back home and have her master class. She said lunchtime. And I was running late, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta get home and get on my camera. So it was fun. It was really, really fun.
Well, and you know, honestly, here's the thing. I do teacher trainings online and I
Hmm.
know what teachers are like with their screens off, putting in their name and they're not really present. And so if
Hmm.
you're coming to this masterclass, I thrive off of energy and
Mhm,
faces and all of that. So
mhm,
I'm like, please just turn your camera on. So those of you who are listening, I wasn't threatening anybody. I just was saying, are you prepared and ready to engage? Because that's
mhm,
really what it was all about. So
mhm.
that's so funny you brought that up.
Yeah.
Forgot.
It was fun though. It was fun though because I was like, okay, I was used to turning my camera on then. So when we started working together, I was like, oh, cameras like masterclass, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So let's talk about, so that was the start. How
Mhm.
has your life improved in the last 12 months working with me as your coach?
I would say definitely more confidence. And as you know, as a neurodiverse person, our minds go a million different directions,
Yes.
and we're just a little unpredictable, right? And so working with you gave me that structure because I think I had mentioned I was like, okay, I like structure and stability.
Yes.
That is me.
Yes.
And because we had that structure and stability, it helped me to get that with you, which went over into my personal and professional life. And
Yeah.
even to this day, I remember my morning routine is on my
Yes.
calendar. And between
Yes.
5 a.m. and 9:30 a.m., I have everything that I do every day. Most people say you do it every day. I was like, that's a
Yeah,
routine. And
exactly.
so and so I have everything that I do is it's on my calendar. So if it's on my calendar, I do it. And it just helps me to be more organized.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And the last episode I put out, I talked about how can we put our accommodations out there? And you and I are calendar people. If it's
Mhm,
not on my calendar, don't expect to see me. And
mhm,
actually, I remember early on, Kim, when we were working, I don't remember if I didn't send you the link. There was something where you said, "Can you make sure that it's on my calendar?" And I don't know if it was like I didn't send something to you, but I was like, you know what, she's right, because I need to make sure. And when it was our appointment times,
mhm, mhm,
and it's so true. Our minds are everywhere and we have so many different things we're doing. We're both moms, we both are doing our thing. So it's just
mhm.
like, yes, it's
Yep.
there if it's there. So
Yep.
structure is key. Structure is
Mhm,
key. I want to ask you,
mhm,
at what point did you feel you had a breakthrough moment where you were like, wow, this is really working? I'm like seeing a different version of myself,
mhm.
the 2.0 of Kim Spight. When was that moment for
Uh,
you?
you I think it was because I knew what I wanted to get out of it.
Right.
I was able to say, okay, here's the direction I want to go. Because I think when we
Yeah.
started, we were going one direction, and I said, okay, and that's one thing I like because you let me tell you, okay, here's what I'm looking out of it.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I've done my strengths finder, so I know what my strengths are.
Yes.
And I said, and I always wondered what my values were, but
Right.
you would read different things about how to discover your values, and I was like, are those really my values, right? And so I was like, okay, something is a little different here. I was like, I don't know if those are really my values that I originally came up
Right.
with. And so when we were talking, and because you were familiar with StrengthsFinder, you were like, okay, let's take your top 5 strengths. Let's see what those values are because that describes you as a whole person. So
Yes.
when we did that, and then because you know I'm into astrology because I have my 2 Laurens,
Yes.
and I tell everybody I was
Yes.
like, I have my 2 Laurens. I was able to take my top 5 strengths, get my values, and then how my astrology plays into that. And it has made me a more well-rounded person
Mm-hmm.
because if it doesn't align with my values, if
Yep.
something feels off, I'm like, oh, that's why it feels off because
Right.
it's not me. It's not for me. So uncovering that was really impactful. And I actually keep my values and my strengths, my values, and my astrology. The one line about my astrology, I keep it in my notes app. So if anybody were to ever ask me, because when I tell people that's I do my strengths, my values, and my astrology, you're like, what's that? And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, funny you ask. And I pull it up, and they're like, wow. I said, so this is me. So you know who I am. And
Yeah.
it's very accurate because a lot of times when people say, tell me about yourself,
Yeah.
people can say anything, but I can honestly, if somebody asks me, tell me about yourself,
You
I'm
can
like,
genuinely do
okay,
it. Yeah.
let me tell you about me. This is
Yeah.
truly me.
So I love when, because it brings me back to when we worked on that, and for everyone listening, this took several sessions.
Oh yeah.
So this was not just like a 20-minute boom, boom, boom. I mean, we went and did a deep dive, and I think what's so critical about the relationship that we had in our coaching sessions, Kim, is that it's all about you, but the neurodiverse version of yourself as well. Meaning, like,
Mhm.
with us having ADHD, sometimes we're all over we are all over
Are
the
all over the
place.
place.
And if our mood and our feelings aren't regulated because we don't have the skills to know why we don't like this person,
Mhm.
so that we might curse out somebody or
Mhm.
whatever the case is. So to
That email
have
got sent that way because.
Yes. But it's crazy because as I'm thinking about it, it individualizes, like, this is how my brain works, but these are my values. This is, the stars are aligning here. This is why I'm not feeling this. And I think sometimes we just say, I'm going to go with my gut, but we don't really know what that means unless you really know yourself in that. So
Exactly.
knowing that we took all that time, I mean, that really was a breakthrough moment. I remember.
Was.
And I want to ask you this. This is the next question. So I want to
Mhm.
talk about what tools helped you.
Mhm.
Now,
Mhm.
before you answer that, I
Mhm.
remember you were like, you know what? I'm going to use this to create my, not your resume, but like your cover letters of your strengths. And because
Mhm.
we did AI with it and we
Uh-huh.
were
Yeah.
putting all this together and it pulled
Mhm.
out all the things as to why you were good for this position or
Mhm.
that position.
Mhm.
So I
Yes.
just had to say that, but you let the audience know what tools worked for you.
Well, I want to piggyback off something you said when you're like,
Yeah.
gut says one thing. Well, because deliberative is my number two strength, and
Yes.
that really equates to self-awareness. And because I am a Scorpio, my intuition is strong.
Yes.
So it is truly me. And one of the things that it's me. And I would always say, I wonder why I feel like this, or, I
Yeah.
just feel something. And I'm now leaning more into my intuition because
Yes.
I now know that the reason that it's so strong is because that's me.
Yes.
And I feel more comfortable doing that now. And from an AI standpoint, it's funny. I always liked technology, and now that AI is everywhere, I was like, okay, let's play around with it a little bit. And I know you were using Chat GPT. I was
Yes.
using Google, and when it was Bard, and now it's Gemini, and I was like, okay, we're gonna play around with it even more. And so, uh, back to my strengths in astrology. So because harmony
Right.
is one of my strengths,
Yes.
and that's all about collaboration. And because I'm a Gemini sun and moon, it's about communicating. So,
Yes.
and thinking about my intuition. So I knew that sometimes my neurodiversity can get the best of me in my emails. I know that.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the nice way to say it, right? And I was like, okay, I wrapped them all up together and said, okay, here's what's happening. Let's work through this.
Yeah.
And when you said to me, have you ever tried using Chat GPT? And I was like, well, I don't really use Chat GPT. I use Google. And she said, okay, you can use either one.
Yeah.
Well, let's try it. And she's like, type out what you want to say and say, make this sound professional.
There you
And the
go.
first few times I did it, I was like, oh snap. Wow.
It
I was
works.
like, it can say what you want to say, but it's
Exactly.
kind of like that anger translator that what was one of those comedians had. I was like, that's what it is. And
Yeah.
so it takes all the emotion out of it. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
everything, when as a person with ADHD, you just you react certain ways. And
Yes.
I was like, okay, but because I know myself, and because I knew that I needed to do that, when I started sending emails, I'd write them out and then put them in there. And I was like, oh, wow. And then on top of that, I would use Grammarly so it would sound right. And I was like, oh, snap, I like this. And it literally, whether it's a personal email, professional email, I was like, okay, I got this. I got this.
Yes.
And I even tell people about it. And I was telling somebody, they were like, well, before I send an email, I'll let somebody read it first. I said,
Mm-mm.
oh, you don't have to do all that. I
Chat
said, because
GPT.
they have emotion. I said,
Yeah.
a person has emotion.
They have emotion.
I said, AI doesn't really have emotion. It gets to the point, and
Yeah.
whatever tone you want, it's going
Yep.
to give it to you. And I played with it one time, and I said, okay, let's see how good it really is. I typed a really, 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 really like it. I couldn't have sent that email to anyone. I said, okay, let's see how good it is. And when it rewrote it, I was like, oh snap.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you read
Yeah.
between the lines, you knew what I was saying, but
Yes, it captured the message, right?
exactly. And I was like, okay. And I'll tell you, I use it all the time. And it has truly changed me from, we started working there last year till now, because I can wrap it all up together.
Yeah.
And it's allowed me to continue to develop both personally and professionally. And I mean, we were talking, I think it was our last meeting, you were like, yeah, I've seen the change in you. And I was like, I guess, cause you don't see the change in yourself,
Yeah,
right?
when you're seeing yourself all
Mhm.
day, every day.
Right, exactly. You just know you're doing the things. And so to know that when you said that, I was like, oh, I guess I am making progress. And it feels
Yes.
good because I'm actually using the tools
Yes.
that I got every single day.
Well, and I think you touched on so many things. And so let me say this. Obviously, those of you who are watching see that we are two Black women, and we know the angry Black woman trope. And I'm really starting to believe that maybe there are a lot more Black women with undiagnosed ADHD and just dysregulated nervous systems who just haven't been given a chance, haven't been given the skills. And so I feel that if we really have these skills, we can take on anything and feel good about ourselves and not downward spiral into a depression or the negative self-talk, all of those cognitive distortions, all of the thinking. And I just see from where you started to now and just how much you are applying those skills. Because I've said this to you, Kim, and I say this to a lot of people and on the podcast, and even to myself. We're human. We're going to have shitty days. Okay.
Mhm.
We're not, just because we get coaching and we know the way does not mean that we're not going to have fuck up days. We're going to
We're
have.
human. I mean,
Exactly. But
we're not AI. So
we're not AI. We're not, and I don't want to be AI. I want to be me.
right.
But I think the thing is that as long as we can say, all right, I'm going to be upset for today, or I'm going to,
Mhm.
beat myself up for 5 minutes, and I'm going to get back on the wagon and pull from my tools. Right.
Yep. Yep.
So just, you really brought me back with the AI and the Chat GPT and the Google Bard, which is now Google Gemini. But so I want to ask this final question, and I'm curious to know, and I know the audience is too. How do you feel prepared for challenges in the future now that we've had, a year working together?
I think I can be authentically me and be okay
Yes.
with that.
That was the goal.
because because and on your master class, the tagline was authentically, what is it,
Yeah.
aligned, authentic.
I think it was like unapologetically authentic or something,
Yeah,
because you're really bringing it back,
yeah,
Kim. I'm like, man, this is a
yeah,
year ago. I got to
yeah,
remember my
yeah.
tagline.
Right. And it was about authenticity, right?
Yes.
And because I can be my authentic self, and you know how people say bring your whole self to work. Well,
Yeah.
I can be my authentic self whether any situation, because I know who I am. I
Mm-hmm.
know here are my strengths. I know these are my values. I know this is how it all works together. And I um I feel confident in that. And you
Yeah.
talked about the angry Black woman. Well, I don't have that because I don't have it in an email, so nobody can ever say, "Oh, she was rude to me in email."
Yeah.
Gemini might have been rude to you. I was like, I wasn't.
Not
Just
Kim
saying.
Spight.
Right. I was like, we're gonna blame Gemini on that one. But yeah, Gemini is the best thing, and it is the best thing ever. And
Yeah.
so because I can be my authentic self, and everything that I do, from a personal standpoint, 'cause I volunteer a lot on a nonprofit, with my church feeding the unsheltered. And actually it's funny, I started a new job and I work in AI. So it's really, really interesting because I'm like, oh, that's my
Yes.
passion, right? And so I'll
Yes.
never forget. I was like, okay, I got this because it's doing what I want to do, which aligns with
Yes.
my values.
And we've talked
And
about
it,
that.
mhm,
Yes.
yeah, and even no day is going to be great 100%,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I can always take it back to, okay, um is it aligned with my values? And if it's
Yes.
not, is it me, or what is it? And I don't have to stress about it. It makes me feel like I've made enough progress so that
Yes.
down the line I can always come back to, okay, is it aligned with my strengths and values? And if I'm
Yeah.
not excelling in something, is it because it's truly not a strength of mine? Right?
Right, exactly. And that's okay
Mhm.
too, because we're not a jack of all, what is it? A jack of all trades and a
A
master of
master of
none.
none. Hmm.
Yeah, no, no.
And I will tell you, I took it a step further because I love AI. I took my all my strengths and put them in
Oh,
Gemini, and
all
I said,
30?
okay,
All
all
30 of
34.
them? Oh, 30.
And
It
I
is
said
34. Yes,
34.
yes.
And I said, here are my strengths, and it was the write up that they did, and it gave me, here are the qualities of it, and here are the things to look out for. So now
Yeah.
I know, like, if something goes wrong, I'm like, okay, let
Is
me
this
let me look this up first,
Yeah, yeah,
right? And I'm
yeah.
like, okay, what's going on here? But it truly is allowing me to be me.
Yeah.
And some people say, especially in our communities, we don't like to talk about, first of all, if you were to ask me when I was growing up about ADHD, I'd have been like, what? And
Yeah.
even now,
Yeah.
like, our community doesn't really talk about it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that the more we talk about it and the more we share, it's not to be looked down upon.
Right.
It's your superpower. Like, I always tell
Exactly.
people, I was like, I do my best work at the last minute. Well, now I can do my best work at the last minute because I got AI helping me. But,
Your
but,
secretary, that's what I call her.
right, right. I was like, you got to know how to use it. I
Yeah.
was like, but it helps, right?
Right,
So
right.
being able to tie it all together, to know that I can be successful, or I am successful,
Yes.
and this kind of just like reinforces what I already knew, but now to really truly put it into action.
Yeah. Wow.
Mhm.
I love this.
Mhm.
Kim. This was such a real, honest conversation that we had. I felt like we were on a coaching call, but others were peeking in and listening or watching.
Mhm.
But I want to say to all of the ladies who are listening, if this resonated with you, book a discovery call. Just chat with me. And I
Yep.
want everyone to feel comfortable where they are and what they need. And I just am so grateful to have met you, Kim, and to be alongside your journey. And I'm just so happy that you were comfortable to come on the show.
Yeah. And I'll say, if anyone listening to this, watching this, if you think that you want to work with Dr. Lauren, just have that call. Because one thing I will tell you about Lauren, because remember when we first talked, and I was like, yeah, I'm not ready.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
I was like, I'm not ready. I was like,
I,
I'm not ready for this.
yeah,
And when I circled back, I was like, I told you when I got ready, I was coming back. And you were like, you did.
yeah.
And I was like, I'm here. And so, have the call with her, because she meets you where you are,
Thank
and
you.
she also will get you where you want to go. But
Thank you,
you
Kim.
kind of gotta know where you want to go. But if it changes, like with mine, it changed because I was like,
Yeah,
I thought about one thing at first, and then I was like, okay, let's incorporate my strengths. We didn't talk about that.
yeah.
So it's allowed me to working with you has allowed me to put all that into place. So if you're somebody that even has the just want to talk about it, just
Yeah.
reach out to her, and she'll be open and honest with you. She won't hard sell you on anything,
No, that
because
is
at the end
not
of
my
the
style.
day,
That's not my
right,
style.
exactly. Because at the end of the day, she Dr. Lauren really truly wants to help other Black women, other women of color, avoid the lessons that she learned along the way,
Yes.
and
Yes.
sharing those stories. And you're not alone.
Yeah.
So
Kim, thank
mhm,
you.
you're welcome.
Oh, I love that. Well, I am going to say, let's leave on this high note right here.
Yes.
And those of you, again, if this is your first time listening or watching, please hit that subscribe button. Please share this episode with anybody if you feel like they might need it. And as always, my website and my discovery call links are in the show notes wherever you're listening to this. So I will see you ladies whenever I see you, because I'm not posting every week, but you know where to find me. So thank you so much for tuning in. And Kim, thank you for coming on the show.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Definitely. Thank you for joining us this week on the Resilience Unlimited show. Be sure to hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. subscribe on our YouTube channel, and follow us on social media. See you next week, Divas. And don't forget, stay resilient.